keep trying things that you want to do or try, you know what I mean? Don't ever give up on like a dream, or don't ever give up just because you're short. I had a boss years ago that was like 5'3", and he played basketball. Like, he was good at it.
Welcome to the Chaos Project. This is Billy Ray Graff hanging out with my friend Bear. How's it going, buddy?
What's going on, man?
Man, I tell you what, we got so many great things going on today. I'm not working. I'm hanging, and hanging is cool.
I like it. I like it.
And we've got a great guest today, military veteran, Sarah. Glad you're here today.
I'm glad to be here.
She is one of my favorite counselors. She says I was crazy, but she's not allowed to counsel me. So we had a great time, and so we're going to have a wonderful conversation, I think, Bear.
I think so as well. We've known Sarah for quite some time. She has been a tremendous help to a lot of veterans that I know. She's a veteran herself, so she actually brings that experience to the table. So without further ado, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah? Give us a little introduction.
Hi, Chap. Hi, Bear.
Hey.
I'm really glad to be here this morning. A little introduction about myself. So where I was raised, just kind of...
You take it wherever you want to go with it.
Okay, perfect. I am a Navy veteran. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've spent the last year and a half working with combat veterans, specifically with PTSD. I am a trauma therapist, and I do come from an attachment-based theory. I like to work in attachment-based. I'm an attachment-based specialist. I'm EMDR trained. But if I back up before that, I'm from Houston area. I was raised up in Kingwood, Texas.
Really?
Yes.
Deal.
That's the rich part where I come from.
It's that side of the tracks.
That's not a track.
I'm going to go back even further than that, though. I was born in Kalispell, Montana. My dad was in the Air Force there, stationed. And my mom is from New York. My dad's from Connecticut. They met in Montana somehow. I was born in Kalispell, which is a really beautiful place. If you've never been there, it's right by Glacier.
Yeah.
And a few years later, my brother was born in Butte. And then after that, we moved to Colorado. And then at about 11 years old, we moved to Kingwood. And that's where I was raised. So I am pretty much a Houstonian, I believe. And I feel like I'm a Texan, even though I do love Montana. You see, I have two siblings, a brother and a sister. My brother is 4 years younger. My sister is 6 years younger. She was born in Houston. And let me see.
You've already forgotten your family. That's interesting.
How long have you been a therapist?
I've been a therapist for 8 years.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What made you want to become one?
So I went through a lot of my own trials and tribulations in life. I had a lot of struggles in my earlier years, and I had some tragedy that happened in my 20s. And from that, I felt like I needed some kind of help and guidance. And so when I got into my 30s, I sought out therapy, and I ended up having a really great therapist. He taught me a lot. I ended up going to therapy for 5 years. And during that time, I just fell in love with the process of what happened and how it changed my life and the tools it gave me, the coping skills I didn't know that I needed.
Right.
Taught me a lot about emotional regulation, things that apparently I was lacking before then. So
Right.
My life was a little chaotic. And I saw a huge difference in the way my relationships changed. With family members, with friends, with myself. And I really attributed that to the therapy that I was receiving. So it made me want to pursue that myself so that I could help out other people. And then I really fell in love with the veteran community because I am a veteran. So I took that and I found my niche.
You know, it's always interesting how often people get involved in something that they didn't know they would be interested in, but because that particular dynamic helped them in life, regardless of what it is. Next thing you know, they're full into it. And I think it's really interesting to hear why Why would someone want to be a counselor? I had the option of when I went into ministry, I could be a counselor. I could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I did not want to be a counselor. The idea of sitting in a room, listening to everybody give me their life story scared me to death. It's like, I can't help these people. But I can tell you, you are an amazing listener. And I have found you know, working as a colleague, I have found for the last year or so that Holy Toledo, you get it. This is not just a job, it's an adventure.
Isn't that a Navy slogan?
I love that.
I like what you did there.
I love that.
And it's great to hear that sometimes in the midst of our own difficulties, we find help. And in the midst of us receiving that help, we find a calling to help others. That's a beautiful thing.
I would have to agree with that. I think one of the greatest gifts that I have as well, and that helps me being a good therapist, is my ability to make people feel safe immediately. I build rapport pretty instantly with people. They feel that non-judgmental from me, and I just have people tell me all the time, like, the first moment I met you, I felt like I could trust you. And that is huge for a therapist, because sometimes that takes a long time to build that. And so, and I feel honored that the people that I do get to work with and that I build that trust with, because that's a hard thing to tell your life story, right, Chap?
Oh, it's extremely difficult to do that. Yeah. My friend Bear over here tried to gut me one day, and very few people to this day really know a lot about me. I'm the helper. I'm not the needer. All right, but I still need a therapist, by the way. So at least my wife says I do. But but I think every wife probably says their husband needs a little therapy every once in a while. So, but yeah, it is hard to just, as a pastor, I've had hundreds of people in my office, and we tried to delve into part of their life stuff. It is very hard, and the rapport, I think, actually is the key.
It is. If they don't trust you from the beginning, then they're really not going to open up to you. But you're right. Bear is very much going for the gut. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. There's many times I've walked into his office and he's like, so, and I'm like, no, I got to turn around and leave. Or he's like, have you read this book? And I can tell it's going for something deeper. And I'm like, there goes Bear with all that, like, philosophical.
But that's what makes life fun. Yeah. Working through tragedy, working through difficulties, working through, I call it just living life. None of us in this world don't have problems. We all have problems. Some are bigger than others. Right. Some tragedies are more tragic than others.
But nobody's going to go through life without something happening.
Absolutely.
And I think growing through what you're going through is the biggest thing, to be able to grow through it, right? Rather than just to go through it and stumble and keep but to grow. I don't know. I think that was the best.
I'm trying to get Chap to fix his collar. It's all jacked up.
I'm trying to look really good, everybody. I want you to know that I take personal concern and care in my visual to all of society. And so I appreciate my bodyguard making sure I look pretty for you.
It's all about presentation.
It's all about presentation.
Does this shirt make me look fat?
A little bit, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll get the editor to fix it for you. We'll slim you down, baby.
Absolutely. They say the camera adds like 10 pounds, right?
That's what they say. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me how hard it is for people to really share their life with other people.
Right.
You when you were giving your introduction, you were talking about different types of therapy that you do. You threw out a lot of alphabet soup CBT, DBT, EMDR, attachment base. That's one of the things I really wanted to touch on today. Those different types of treatment, how, like going to nursing school, right? I want to be a pediatric care nurse. I want to be a respiratory nurse. Like there's different specialized fields in medicine. Right. Even in medicine, a cardiologist, a neurologist, right? You wanted to be a therapist. You specialize in some of these different treatments. Is there a reason for it? You just found out you were a better fit for some of those types of treatments? And what are those types of treatments? I mean, when you hear just an acronym, can you explain some of those?
Sure. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. I think most people know what CBT is.
What is it?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
What does that mean?
Okay, yeah. So Aaron Beck actually is a psychologist that created cognitive behavioral therapy, and he created it for depressive symptoms. So changing your cognition, going in and working through things like, okay, I feel this way, but is that a fact, right? And so taking your thoughts and putting them on trial and going, okay, am I good?
Great.
Taking your thoughts and putting them on trial and trying to weed out, just because I feel a certain way doesn't mean that that's an actual fact, right? And we learn that feelings are not facts. And so if we can start to learn to separate that, then we can start to make better decisions in our life. And so that's kind of what the cognitive behavioral therapy is, right? Is that you are not your thoughts, in that sense that you can fact check.
Right.
And that will help you make a better decision, hopefully, if you can get in the habit of it. But like with anything, you're going to have to do work to get there. I can give people homework on CBT, but if they don't go home and do it, then they keep saying, but I feel like a loser. And I'm like, but you're not a loser, right?
Right.
It's just like, I use the term perspective a lot in my line of work. People have different perspectives, and their perspective for them is truth in their mindset. That doesn't mean it's real, and it doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
It's their perspective on how they're looking at it. So a lot of what I do in my world is I try to help people find the proper reality perspective so that they can make better choices about what's really true in their life versus what's not really true in their life.
Perception is reality, though. I mean, if you have you're judging life based off of a certain lens, right? You're judging life based off an experience that you've had throughout life, military experience per se. Right. I'm going to view the military through my own lens, right? Walk a mile in my shoes.
I think that's why some people get out of the military, they just loved it. And then some people get out of the military and they just hated it. It's always, and you're exactly right, Bear. Depending on what their life experiences possibly were, did they work for good commanders? Did they have cool dudes or gals working around them?
Right.
Did they get blown up? Did they not get blown up? I mean, there's so many dynamics, and we literally look at life differently based on a lot of different things.
Correct. Perception is everything. And I love that you talk about that, because when I talk about that, I'm an attachment-based specialist. Relationships are key in everything, right? Like our relationship with self, our relationship with God, our relationship with others. So what we bring into like the military, or what we bring into other relationships, when we're looking at an attachment base, we're looking at how did those develop in your childhood, because our perception is oftentimes created in our childhood as to how we view people, how we view things. And so as an attachment-based specialist, what I'm looking at is trying to help you understand your appropriateness in relationships with self, with a higher power, with others. how can you show up for yourself appropriately? What is your responsibility, and what is the responsibility of others around you, right? Because sometimes we can take it and I can expect too much from people around me, and that's not appropriate, right? So we try to work on that. There's four attachment styles. There's secure, anxious, avoidant, and then what we call a disorganized attachment style. Secure is the one that we want and that we're hoping for, right? And a secure attachment is, I have a very balanced view of myself and others, and it's inappropriate. Like, I know what to expect from certain relationships at work or in a romantic relationship or with my parents. Then the other three are what we call an insecure attachment. And oftentimes what we learn is that those are developed in childhood from the caretaker from 0 to 18 months. And I try to help people work through that because what happens is we cannot be attuned at all times, right? But attunement is really important in relationships. But as a parent, we can't always attune with our child appropriately all the time, right? There will be misattunement.
Oh, absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
And there will be a rupture in the relationship. The thing, though, is that it's the parent's responsibility to repair the relationship, to teach the child the repairing part, right? And if it doesn't happen over and over, they may become anxious or they may become avoidant. And when we talk about a disorganized attachment style, what we're talking about is they don't really know. Sometimes they're anxious, sometimes they're avoidant. They don't really know what to expect because maybe they had a parent that had unresolved grief or unresolved trauma themselves. And so they weren't always met with consistency. And so it's disorganized. They had a lot of fright sometimes without resolution.
Well, what are your thoughts on the the dissection of nature versus nurture? I'm asked that all the time. I'm the spiritual guy in the room, you know, and we have all these deep conversations. Well, this individual's having this challenge.
Right.
Is it because of, and it's a negative challenge, let's say. Mm-hmm. Is it nature? Was this individual just naturally kind of bred this way genetically? Can nurture override some of those natural desires and compensate? Are they frozen? Or can nurture overcome a lot of other things? What do you think?
That is a great question.
That's my specialty.
It's a great question. Yeah. Nature versus nurture, that comes up a lot, right? And it's such a difficult thing because
it is hard.
It is a difficult one for me, especially.
Scorpion and the frog.
Scorpion and the frog.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why are you surprised when the scorpion pops you when you're trying to be his friend?
Right. Because that's his nature.
It's
right?
It's who he is.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So in humanity, of course, a scorpion doesn't have a soul.
But we do.
But we do. Therein comes the nurture part.
Correct.
And I personally deal with that a lot. And people I'm trying to work with, we're fighting this dichotomy of, I hear this and it disappoints me, but it's perspective. I was made this way. I'm just made this way. You know? And I say, well, maybe there's some things in your life, or maybe you're more naturally prone. That's true genetically. But we don't always have to be that. We can always grow out of that.
Correct.
If that's not a true reality, then we might as well throw spirituality out the door, counseling out the door, and a lot of other things out the door if we're not changeable, reflectable, You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Am I wrong?
No, correct. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about a case study I had read years ago about this nurse. I believe she was born in Russia. And she was put into an orphanage. She was not picked up ever. You know what I mean? Like she was barely cared for, just enough to like survive, but not to be nurtured in any way. And so in her later years, she became a nurse because she wanted to give to others, but she was still very cold and callous and had a very difficult time receiving love. And so they put her in a study where they put her in a place where she got hugged all day long, every day for like a year. They just hugged on her and loved on her and hugged on her and loved on her to see if that would change her nature of being like cold and callous.
A different type of nurturing.
Correct. And it changed. It helped her, right? Like just being loved on and being shown affection and love every day helped her change that part of herself and start to trust people. And so when I think about that, I think that like people do have the ability to change and that nurture can overcome some nature, but not all, like the scorpion, right? Like you are not going to love a scorpion so much that it doesn't like get you. So
I think there's a fine line. Of course, as a pastor, I'm all about that passage in Scripture that talks about when you receive God for real, our life is transformed and you become a new creature, a new thing. Spiritually, you become a new thing. And some people say, oh, I'm fixed. Well, no, you still got to work through stuff, all right? But you now have the spiritual ability to tap into a supernatural power to help you work through what I would call some of those nature things. Because I'm a firm believer that we can't heal from our mistakes or our hurts without some type of spiritual cognitive experience. That's just me.
We talked about belief a lot, and that has a lot to do with who you are. Yeah, I was born this way. I'm probably never, at a certain point in my life, I knew I was not going to be on the Houston Rockets. Like I was not going to play basketball, right? I'm not that tall, right? Football, I had bad knees, right? You have certain genetics that will make it harder, not impossible, but harder to do certain things that you want to do. So you do have some genetic limitations. I've always had bad joints, man. I mean, I was given that by my parents, right? But they gave me other gifts, right? God gave me other gifts. So, but there's always stories. You know, Barry Sanders wasn't a big guy. Work done. He was a running back for Atlanta for a while. Dude was like 180 pounds. I mean, could you? And these dudes are monsters that are playing in the NFL. These guys are 300 plus. You know, some of them. Right? Yeah, I don't want that kind of energy. I don't want to get tackled by a 300-pound dude. And I mean, I'm by all intents and purposes, you know, I'm not a small guy either. But I mean, up against these dudes, no. But there's always somebody beating the odds. There's always somebody overcoming. I guess they're nurturing. Man, you see the movie The Blind Side?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the need for counselors today is at a high rate.
Highest it's ever been.
Exactly. More than ever.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is because we are living in a culture today that drives us subconsciously to be something that we may not be. And so so many people are spending so much mental effort to be something that they're not just genetically, but they're not designed to be. All right? Everybody wants to be on the American Idol. right? Because it's cool, or The Voice, or one of these great singing song shows. Not everybody can sing, and that's a natural gift. If you can't sing, you can't sing. I don't care how many classes you go to, you can't sing. It's just reality, all right? And I know a lot of people that sing as good or better than a lot of people who have recording studios, recording deals, all right? They just weren't in the right place at the right time with the right environment, so they didn't get that break, all right? But so many people are chasing after dreams and things that's not who they are.
But is that a bad thing?
Could be.
Is that a bad thing?
I think it could be if it takes you off the trajectory that grows you and builds you to be who you're supposed to be, so that you can totally experience life to its fullest.
As long as it's not self-destructive, right? Because who are you to tell somebody else what they can and can't do, right? And that's my problem. Everybody wants to tell somebody what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And that, no, bro.
Oh,
that's
dude,
not gonna happen.
if you can't sing and you want to go get on American Idol,
No, and I agree with
go
that.
for
I agree
it.
with
If
that.
you don't mind being ostracized and made fun of and laughed at,
But I mean, at
go
least
for it.
the man in the arena, that dude had the nuts to get up there and make an ass out of himself on national television.
Sure.
Right? You got to give that a little bit of credit. That takes a huge amount of intestinal fortitude to do that. Right?
Sure.
Unless they're just so oblivious.
Yeah. I mean, I can respect people trying to do things that they're not the best at. I can respect it. I'm not saying don't try if you just feel like you want to try something.
Right.
But at the end of the day,
Be realistic.
be realistic and try to identify who you are and how God built you and
Right.
made you, so you can be a 10 in something. That's how I tell people.
Tap into the talents you were given.
I believe every single person that God makes is a 10 at something. I may not be a 10 at singing. Maybe I'm a 10 at just hugging. Or maybe I'm a 10 at encouraging. Or maybe I'm a 10 in art. I don't know. But if I spend my entire life trying to be a 10 in singing or something that I'm not good at, I think I'm hurting myself long term, and I'm going to be building up negative anxieties within my life, and it could blend into other things. What do you think, Ms. Counselor?
I think I'm a 10 at hugging. I'm just kidding.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
So, I mean, I am all for people trying things that, you know what I mean? Getting outside of their comfort zone and trying things. But I do think I hear what you're saying at some point, trying to tune into what is the talent.
Right.
So that we can tap into being our true authentic self and growing the most we can in that way. But by all means, keep trying things that you want to do or try, you know what I mean? Don't ever give up on like a dream, or don't ever give up just because you're short. I had a boss years ago that was like 5'3", and he played basketball. Like, he was good at it. Like, not for like, you know, NBA, but.
Bugsy Bowes?
You know, yeah. Enigmas, though. They're enigmas.
Right.
In the system.
But if somebody had told him, you will never do that and you might as well just go somewhere else, like, he could have missed out on the opportunities. And he absolutely loves playing, and he plays, you know, for some, I don't know what it is, but they do travel, you know, and
I think that's great.
So getting back on the alphabets.
Yes.
On acronyms.
I'm having fun taking her off the acrobat.
You would stay on track, chap.
I'm
Don't
trying.
get sidetracked.
I'm trying.
We're going down rabbit holes.
Thank you.
DBT.
dialectical behavioral therapy.
Thank you.
Right.
What does that mean?
So that was created mostly to help individuals that are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
That sounds interesting.
And so oftentimes what we were taught is that people that had a personality disorder, that they weren't going to get better. They couldn't get well, right? They couldn't change. That was their personality, and that's how they were going to be. I can't remember the name of the therapist that created DBT, but she did it to help people with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Oftentimes it really helps with emotional regulation. So it's the distress tolerance. And she's got a lot of acronyms like DEAR, and it's just, I don't always use DBT. I do use parts of DBT for emotional regulation. But I will get to one of the other letters that I use, which is EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I used EMDR was done on me years ago. I think it was 2015, 2016. For some traumas that I had gone through, and surprisingly it worked for me. And I was like, this is really strange. I trusted the therapist doing it though. She was also a Navy veteran. And I think maybe that helped in that moment because it was kind of weird with her waving her fingers in front of my eyes, right? Like I was like, what is really happening right now? But the lady that did create EMDR, she was on a walk one day and she recognized that by moving her eyes from the left to the right, that she was able to desensitize some things that she was going through on that walk, right? We also learned that walking is bilateral stimulation. So when we sway from left to right, or we're walking, or we're doing, that's bilateral stimulation. So EMDR works in a bilateral stimulation. When we go to bed at night and we shut our eyes and we get into REM, right, rapid eye movement, that's the way God designed us to wash away the day's anxieties, right? To work through some things. So an EMDR therapist is going to have you with one foot in the present and one foot in the past. And we are trained by bilateral stimulation through eye movements to move you to bounce.
So what is that like? They're talking to you and you're getting them to move their eyes during a session. Is that what it is? I've never done that before.
Right. So the original way it was designed is we move the eyes from the left to the right, but you have to break the barrier. You have to see the eye actually go all the way to the left and to the right. So now, because of COVID and things as to why we ended up on like a lot of virtual platforms. How that worked with Bear?
I'm sitting over here and I'm moving my eyes from left to right. And I'm like,
Bear
man, this
needs
feels
some bilateral simulation.
So I've always been taught breathing exercises, right?
Okay.
Like square breathing or pranayama, a long exhale, just centering yourself, calming your heart rate, calming yourself. But this is interesting.
It's surprising how quickly it works. What I've learned is that the body is designed to heal itself, right? Our body's designed to heal itself.
Absolutely.
This is just one more way to show that the body can heal itself.
Right.
And it was created for that, right? Like that's why at night when we go to sleep, it's doing it on its own. We're just doing it in the daytime in a controlled environment. But because, like I was saying, we're now on a lot of virtual telehealth platforms, they have sensors you can put in your hand. Some do that, or there's like a ball that can go across the computer screen, right? You can get this program and your client just watches the ball go left to right. And then it's just, you have to make sure the eyes break the barrier. That's the thing. I've had great success with EMDR with a lot of people. I have had a few people that were like, yeah, I'm not getting anything from this. Like, this is really, or they get really overwhelmed in the first few sessions. And so that's why emotional regulation is really important before you start EMDR. You have to make sure that the person can regulate.
And people have to be open to the possibility that it will help them.
Yes. I mean, I had a client that came to me. Anyways, within 6 sessions, I want to share a little bit of her story, but I also don't want to break her anonymity in any way. But she had an MD, and she was working as a sales rep at a facility because the trauma she had endured, she could not work in the medical field. She just couldn't. And she had an MD, right? We did 6 sessions of EMDR, and she now works at the Mayo Clinic.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
It is amazing because the amount of trauma she showed up in my office with, and her inability to even work in her own profession as a medical doctor, right?
Right.
Like for her in 6 sessions to be willing to put out applications, to take a job and to go do that
Right.
was just,
What's really, I think people need to hear, and I hope they're listening. The only reason that was able to happen was because she realized she needed some help, and she went somewhere that helped her.
and she believed it. Yeah, she believed in the process. She was at a point. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to ask for help.
Oh, that's a hard thing for most people, though, right?
I don't like it. So, out of all these therapies, these CBT, DBT, EMDR, attachment-based therapy, veterans with PTSD, what do you find to be the most effective?
Honestly, Bear, what's the most effective for me is not always the modality. It's the ability for them to trust you and to open up and share about what they've been through, what they've endured, to get that stuff out of them and off their chest. Most veterans that I know are carrying tons of trauma inside of them, right? And when we have trauma that's stored in our body, there's a book that's called The Body Keeps the Score. And what it talks about is that it's trapped in there, right? Like we have all these trapped emotions and we have all these things that are stuck in there. So throughout a session, I'm constantly asking them, where do you feel that in your body? Where do you feel that? When you're telling me this, where are you feeling that, right? And then I've got this thing that shows what emotion that is, like where that's trapped, what's that usually talking about, right?
Right.
And in almost 9 times out of 10, it's so accurate about what, like it could be a childhood thing or it could be a different thing, right? And it's like on point. So I really think that there are so many great modalities, and I think that it's really important to have therapeutic modalities, that I think that if you don't have that level of trust with a combat veteran or a veteran, like you are not going to get,
Right.
it doesn't matter what modality you're
Right.
coming in with. It just
Right.
doesn't. Oftentimes, like I know at the VA, I did CPT, cognitive processing therapy. I think CPT is great, but we did it in a group setting, and I didn't want to share crap in that setting.
Right.
I didn't want to open up. I got nothing from it. I literally got nothing from it. And that's just my own experience. I'm not going to say other people haven't gotten something from it. But in that moment, like I didn't want to talk about those things in a group of like 10 to 12 other people at that point, right? Like maybe today I might be more comfortable because I've gone through but I think even the moment I sat with my therapist all those years ago, I trusted him inherently for some reason. I just did. There was just something about him that let me know it was okay to open up.
So, kind of switching gears, but still on the therapy topic, we talked a lot about medicinal treatments as well. Holistic-based medicinal treatments, which I'm a huge fan of. I think if we can help one veteran, and I think it's natural, instead of taking all these poisons that you put in your body. You ever listen to the side effects on one of those pharmaceutical commercials? Like at the end, you're like, this is going to cause ED, anal bleeding. You may pass out while driving. You may die. But hey, you're going to be happy too. You know, and like it's got this dude on the commercial just smiling, grilling hamburgers.
It is the greatest
hanging
day
out
of
with the
my
family.
life.
Yeah.
But it's got the black box label, warning, like.
Yes.
So he's sitting over there wearing an adult diaper, you know, because yeah. Anyway, so medical marijuana, psilocybin, DMT, ayahuasca. There's been a huge ketamine therapy. There's been a huge push by the military community. I think the VA is even entertaining ketamine therapy. They're also entertaining medicinal marijuana. And combat veterans with PTSD, people with PTSD.
Right. People with PTSD.
Have it's shown a lot of success.
Yeah.
Has a lot of merit. What are your thoughts on that?
I am totally not against it at all. I'm not against it. I have several clients that in the past have gone to facilities, some in Mexico, where they had the experience that they got to take psilocybin or they got to take some sort of like medicine or something like that, right? And the experience that they shared with me when they got back was that of a very spiritual experience for them. It became very spiritual, right? And oftentimes it brought them closer to God. And through that process, they did become less depressed. They did become less anxious. They did find something that allowed them to change their perception.
Right.
And I think we talked about that at the beginning, that there is a thing that perception is huge. And if we can't shift it, if we can't change it, so sometimes, I mean, I think that Native Americans were using these things a long time ago. But I'm not suggesting people just go out and do it like on their own sometimes. I think that there might need to be some level of like in a controlled environment or, some other way. I'm not promoting going out and just getting high. That's not what I'm promoting, right?
No, I'm tracking.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not saying go get loaded and that's going to change everything for you. What I'm saying is like there are specific amounts and types that can help in certain situations. And I've heard of I've even heard of MDMA helping with trauma.
Yeah.
So, but usually that's done in a medical facility with professionals that can guide you through that. Right. And then people have had experiences. I've had a client that did psilocybin and, was very, very angry at his parents for years and had a really rough relationship with them. And after the psilocybin experience, he's moved in with his parents to take care of them.
That's awesome.
Like that changed his heart because he saw their life experiences and recognized that his parents did the very best they could with what they had.
Right.
And for me, I think that's such an important thing that when we can get to that place that we understand our parents all did the best they could with what they had, right? And so whatever gets you to that point where you can start to have better relationships or love people or not be so angry or hateful or, I mean, I'm just kind of for different therapies.
He talked about that earlier, about perspective. If you can walk, and I mentioned, walk a mile in my shoes, perception, and that young man certainly got a different perception, a different perspective after that treatment. And I'm all about it being a controlled environment. One of the arguments I recently had with some guys was about medicinal marijuana. They were like, man, what if this guy's just using it to get high? So what? So what? Right. If it helps him sleep, well, how are you going to regulate the THC? Again, is it a benefit? Right. I mean, if alcohol is not regulated right now, alcohol is regulated, right? It's posted on a can, it's posted on a bottle, but nobody is regulating how much you drink. Right. You have to be your own referee, right? You have to be your own regulator when you consume these things. And I always say everything in moderation. There's nothing bad out there. You drink too much water, you can die. Everything in moderation. Why not?
Right. And alcohol is completely legal and it's caused more generational trauma than other things, right?
Absolutely.
And it has easy access at every gas station.
Right.
Nobody's regulating it.
Right.
You're right. Like people could consume so much that they die tonight. And
they do.
And they do. And people die every day because of alcohol use when they consume too much in an improper,
Right. Right.
So I get that. And you can't always do medicinal marijuana in a controlled environment. I understand that as well, but I'm kind of just I don't know. When I think about it and I think about how much alcohol really affects people.
Yeah.
It kills people all the time. And we let that be sold in HEB. So.
And I don't know of anybody ever that's overdosed on weed, but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But, You know, I mean, generally people are docile. They're, and again, you have extremes. It's not for everybody. That's not what I'm saying. You have extremes, just like you have 5 foot tall basketball players that are all stars and 180-pound running backs that are all stars, right? That is not the norm, right? You're always going to have crazy fringe on the left spectrum, on the right spectrum, on the outskirts. It's not for everybody. Not everybody. I was at the gym yesterday working out with a buddy of mine, and you know, I was telling him, you know, showing him different exercises, and I was talking to him about grip, you know, hand placement. And I said, bro, this, you know, we can have the argument about higher reps, you know, lower weight, high weight, low reps. I was like, bro, do what works for you. As I'm getting older, it's all about movement. You stop moving, you die, right? Motion's lotion. But what works for me, what I get a better workout from, what produces more results for me, may not work for you, right? Because we're all unique. We're all individuals. So, yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's my thought.
That's your thought.
That's my thought. And I also don't think it's for everyone. I think that you need to look at people's, you know, historical backgrounds. Some people may have substance abuse disorders, which they shouldn't venture down that path.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think all of that, you know, can be done. And maybe even people that do have that, it's still going to be beneficial. I don't know. It is individualized.
I think you get back to that same conversation of not everybody can regulate for themselves. That's the other problem. We have a lot of people in this country that can't regulate themselves. Not my job to regulate them. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. So do we just open everything up and say, go for it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I struggle with that on a daily basis because I watch people. I've seen so many alcoholics. I've seen so many drug addicts. I've tried to help them overcome those challenges. And yeah, I've seen drug addicts on legal stuff. Okay? I've seen them both ways. I've been doing what I do long enough. I've seen that and I've experienced that. The problem is the same. The format may be different. The delivery mechanism may be different, but the outcome is still the same. They're in trouble. And so obviously legislating doesn't work. We've had that conversation. I don't think you can legislate morality. I really don't. I think it's deeper than that. They can make as many laws as they want. People are still going to go to bars and get drunk, or go home, buy them a couple of 6-packs on the weekend and party. That's not illegal. You can't. It's not going. Nothing's going to happen. All right.
I like the party chap.
I get you. But the minute
In moderation.
The minute they get into a car, now they're interrupting somebody else's possibility of life. The minute they, I see lots of families break up because of different types of things in life. Because when you are not within moderation, you become different people. People change when they're under the influence. Some are really happy drunks.
Yeah.
Be it drugs or be it alcohol or whatever. Some are not. Some are angry, mean people. And so I wish I knew what the answer was. I'd like everybody to just be happy. I want everybody to just enjoy life. God gave us this beautiful thing we call life. It would be so awesome if we could just all enjoy it. But, you know, there's times and most people try some different things in their life. And sometimes it hooks them and they get in trouble. And the rest of their life is a mess, and we call Sarah to help us.
Job security.
Job security
You
for
got
Sarah.
job security.
You know, so.
I believe in personal freedoms. You know, I mean, do you have a governor on every one of your vehicles you drive, right? Because you could argue that, hey, man, you know, these tires are not rated for that speed. It's unsafe to drive fast. man, I mean, you can go down this rabbit hole all day. I mean, how much do you regulate? Some laws were designed to regulate and control behavior, right? This is bad. I think this is bad for you. So you probably shouldn't do it. Like, we've gotten past the point of, hey, don't hurt other people, right? Golden rule, right?
Yeah, I think, once your freedom infringes on someone else's freedom, then we have a problem. I'm a big freedom guy. I believe that we have the freedom to do a lot of things in this country. We should. I believe in the Constitution.
Too.
But at the end of the day, if I'm doing things because I want to, and I become infringement on your freedoms, that's a different conversation. It's a different conversation,
All right, we're going.
Let's move on.
We
went down another rabbit
I'm
hole.
like, we are going,
It's great. We're going down the rabbit hole. Let's get back on track.
We're doing, I love these rabbit holes.
That's why it's a conversation.
Your daily routine. You're a big CrossFitter.
I am 9-year CrossFitter.
Really?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 9 years.
Wow.
Man, every time I go to a chiropractor, massage therapist, I'm like, man, I love CrossFitters. They keep me in business. So again, just like you always have job security being a therapist,
They do
I'm
too.
sure they appreciate you keeping them in business.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because there's a group of like 4 women that I hang out with at the CrossFit gym, and we all visit this same chiropractor at Rosti. And he's very expensive, but we've all got a bill going with him because, and if one of us shows up, he's like, so how's Sarah and so-and-so?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
how's so-and-so and
That's good.
so-and-so? And we're like, oh, they'll be in next week. Like, their knee hurts, So,
Put it on my tab.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly.
yeah,
We're
I love
like,
it.
oh, I just paid that off. Dang, here we go again. So yeah, we keep a Rosti in business.
That's
But
good.
we have our special guy we like.
So why CrossFit? And how often do you do it?
In 2015, I had a friend that introduced me. She said, do you want to come work out with me? I was doing traditional stuff at the gym and
Right.
just kind of doing that. And she said, hey, would you like to come over and check this out with me? And I was like, sure, okay. And I don't know why. It was awful. It was hot as heck. It was in a box, like it's right next to a tortilla factory. So like you smell tortillas like the whole
Right,
time. You're like,
right.
oh my gosh, But you're like in the sweaty part of the warehouse. There's no there's no like AC. It's just a
airflow.
fan.
Right.
And the workout was awful. I can't remember what it was. It was just awful. But I had so much fun. I was like, sure, I'll pay $150 a month to come here. Like, take all my money. And so I really just became involved in CrossFit. I liked it. I mean, in the winter times, we have no reprieve from the cold. Like, we're freezing in there.
Right.
And in the summer times, we have no AC. So we're just like sweating. But then I had a great opportunity during the time that I started CrossFit I was working on our Texas Veterans Commission grant for the county that I was in. And I was working with female veterans that were transitioning home from the military. So I got to work with them because if anyone's ever transitioned out of the military, you know that can be a very difficult transition,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Like all of a sudden you go from this and then you're like,
Right.
I'm free.
and then you're like, you don't know what to do with yourself.
The sky is falling.
Right?
I'm free to the sky is falling.
That's right. That's right.
What? And I'm barking commands and nobody's listening to me.
Right.
So I got this opportunity to start bringing some of them to the CrossFit gym. The grant allowed me to provide some of them for fitness. And so I kind of got into that with them. And it was something we did. Like we did self-defense classes on Monday night.
Very nice.
The sheriff of that county, he
Right.
would do that with us. And so all of me, like, it was fun, right?
Right.
And then on Tuesdays we did yoga together. And then on Wednesdays we did equine therapy. But in the mornings we would join together and do CrossFit.
Right.
And so it really just became like this camaraderie with me and these other female veterans. And then I moved from there, and I did end up finding another CrossFit gym. So it's just been something I've done. I go 5 days a week. I used to go 6 days a week. I'm down to 5 because I'm older now, 9 years older. And like my body does hurt sometimes.
Right.
And there are some days I'm like, man, I just cannot get up at 4:30 right now. And I'm just really beat up. But I don't know why. I just enjoy it. I really enjoy the fact that it's different every day. And I've just got a group of other people that I mix with.
You got a tribe.
Yeah, I've got a tribe.
I love it.
It's really cool what's happened with that. Yeah, I love it. But it is not for everyone. It really isn't. And I if you live in the Houston area, particularly we've had like a lot of rain this year.
Right.
And so every year we do the Murph on Memorial Day weekend. And this year was the humidity this year, like almost killed me. Almost.
That's bad.
It almost killed us. Yeah. I was 40 minutes into it and was like, I'm not sure I'm going to make it.
Right.
Man, we're building a fence, and I had a couple friends over helping me out, and man, I mean, we're sitting there sweating our asses off, like ridiculous, like you just melt. And I mean, we're talking. I'm like, man, I don't remember it being this hot when we were kids.
I don't
and I know we're not handling it as well as we used to when we were kids, but man, like I don't know, man. Global warming. I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It really is. I don't know what's going on.
Oh well, it is what it is.
During the winter, do you do ice baths or anything like that?
No, I know you had suggested that to me before. What I will do sometimes is just turn the water on cold for like the last 30 to 60 seconds of the shower and just be in it as cold as possible. But I've never actually gotten into an ice bath. I have done cryotherapy several times though. Yeah.
So very, very
3
very
minutes
similar.
where you freeze to death and then defrost.
Right. It's good. It's good for you.
Well, I tell you what. We have some more we want to talk about.
We do?
I think we do, don't we?
Yes,
we
do.
More we want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a couple more questions for you.
We're gonna do that. But
you want to take a break?
We're gonna take a break.
Sure.
And we're gonna be back with Super PLCer Sarah in just a few minutes. Chaos Project will be right back.